I drove the last 911 GT3, the 997, I lamented the end of the manual gearbox. It had just been announced that the new GT3, this one, was going to change gears for you with no manual option. I said that I'd find out whether the new car and gearbox combo offered the same engagement as the old setup when I drove it. Well, today's the day to find out. To ease any fears, at least this one's still got a silly wing. And here is said big, silly wing. It's overly large, overly flouncy, and just ridiculous. But it's also got 3.8 written on the side. So far, so 911 GT3. And don't worry yourself about the gearbox, we will be getting into that later. But for now, allay your fears with the fact that this thing will rev up to 9,000 RPM. Yes, it's the new 991 911 GT3, the third most mental car Porsche makes. That's after the 918 Spider and the 911 GT3 RS. This car's been through the ringer since its birth, what with some small fires and the need for every car on the road to have its engine replaced. In the old days, Porsche proved at Le Mans that anything the likes of Ferrari could do, they could do better. The 458 went a bit on fire, so did the GT3, but it needed a whole new engine, not just some new glue. The GT Porsches, those are the hardcore ones, the ones designed to go round a track as quickly as possible, designed to use every millimetre of tarmac that's presented to it. They're designed to make the driver feel absolutely brilliant at any given opportunity. Over 14,000 GT3s have been sold since they started making them, and that's a lot of people who want to go as fast as possible, admittedly for the money. This one, the 991 generation GT3, is the fastest of the lot. Around the ring, if you're good, it'll do 7:25. If you're not good, like me, well, you can tell people that it'll do 7 minutes 25 round the ring, and that is kind of the same thing. The GT3 has always had a special place in a lot of people's hearts. Where other 911s offer a great experience all round, the GT3 offers a more hardcore time without being, an actual race car. Now's the time to talk about comfort. It doesn't necessarily take the forefront. For example, in the back, there's no real sign of any seats, just a big old roll cage. It is quite noisy in here, which for some it might be great, for others it might grate. And then there's the suspension. It comes in two modes. You can set it in normal or sport. Normal is more geared towards sport, and sport is geared towards people who really like sport. However, these may be sacrifices you'll be prepared to make once you find out what this thing can really do. And what it can do is pretty awesome. 0 to 62 takes 3.5 seconds and its top speed is near as damn it 196 miles an hour. That comes from a 3.8 litre flat 6 that churns out 475 brake horsepower and 324 pound-foot. There's even the option to up the torque by pressing a little button in the cockpit. It, thanks to some engineering magic, gives you a thwack more between 3 and 4,000 RPM. It'll rev up to 9,000 RPM as well, which is frankly insane. On top of all of that, you got rear wheel steer. Now, that's quite smart, and you get it on the Turbo S. At low speed, it turns the rear wheels 1.5 degrees in the opposite direction to the front. It means you can manoeuvre better in tight spaces. At high speeds, it turns them in the same direction as the front, so you get a better line. As well as that, there's torque vectoring. If the car thinks you need it, on turning, it'll brake the inside wheel, so you can get, again, a tighter line. When Porsche Porsche announced the new GT3 a few years ago, a lot of people, myself included, were a little bit concerned about their sole choice of gearbox, the PDK. Now, don't get me wrong, the PDK is a brilliant system. It pisses over pretty much everything else. But is it good enough to replace the manual? The last GT3, I absolutely loved it. Wonderful, wonderful thing. The gearbox was part of that because it made up part of the experience. Does this? Yes and no. When I'm on it, when I'm having a little bit of fun in some twisty stuff, when no one's watching and there's no risk of hitting anything or what have you, the paddles feel amazing. It's great, you can just leave it in gear or let the car do its thing, and it's spectacular. It's controllable, it's delightful, it is, as you'd expect, a PDK to be. However, there are some times when I really want a manual gearbox, but that is just personal preference. With the PDK, the GT3 works. It still feels stripped out, it still feels hardcore, it still feels absolutely super stonking brilliant ace. It's just me being awkward. I like manual gearboxes. I'm one of the old guard. According to Porsche, 80% of all the GT3s it makes will find their way to a track. The GT3 is the wagon for the person who doesn't quite want a race car but does want something that'll make them feel good on both the road and the track. It's a feel-good car. Say what you will about the big wing, the gearbox, or even 911s in general. I know you will. But hear this. That car right there does everything you'd expect a Porsche GT car to do, and a little bit more besides. It's harder, it's faster, it's better, it is ever so slightly livable. Slightly. 991 GT3, it's one of the greats.